Corporate Services Committee meeting of the Fraser Valley Regional District. Call the meeting to order. The first item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first item is just a motion with respect to holding this meeting electronically, not in the boardroom with members of the public and yourselves on the line.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Raymond, second by Director Popov. All in favor? Opposed, if any. Item carries. Next item.
Next item is approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items. And Mr. Chair, we would like to strike item 4.1.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move the change to the agenda? It's moved by Director Pranger, seconded by Director Facio. And with that change, all in favor? Opposed, if any. The items carry. Next item.
3.1, we have the draft Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting minutes of February 11th, 2021.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Blue, seconded by Director Stobart. All in favor? Opposed, if any. Item carries. Next item.
Next is 5.1. We have letter from District of Kent to Lower Mainland Local Government Association regarding call for resolutions.
Thank you. Is moved by
It's just an information item, Mr. Chair.
Any questions on that item?
Just hopeful that you would, Mr. Chair, and support this resolution at the LMLGA.
Thank you, and it's a good opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. Director Ross, you had a question?
Sorry. No, not a question. Just wanted to say thank you to District of Kent for bringing this forward. More than happy to support.
Absolutely. LMLGA will look a little, well, I guess, similar to what it did last year, virtually again this year, but we hope we'll have good attendance. Next item.
At 6.1.1, facility authorization for Revolution Resource Recovery Park, Inc. in Abbotsford. There's a motion for your consideration.
That's moved by Director Blue and seconded by Director Ross. And any discussion or questions on the item? None. All in favor? Opposed, if any. The item carries. Next item.
6.2.1, we have new usage data for trails on Sumas Mountain from the Stalo Collaborative Stewardship Forum. It's an information item, but we do have some staff on the line that can answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you. And questions on this item? Don't see any. Next item.
6.3.1, we have modification of the Glen Valley and Matsqui Trail Regional Parks Operating and Maintenance Agreement with the City of Abbotsford. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Ross, seconded by Director Stobart. Discussion? Director Blue?
Question, thank you. So I just want to clarify that this is just to align with the fiscal year. There isn't actually any other change.
Ms. Ginneman?
Sure. I see that Mr. Urban has actually put his camera on, and perhaps he would like to speak to the agreement.
Good morning, Mr. Urban.
Chair Lum, and through you, yes, this is an alignment. We did that last year with a modification, and this is now new year, so new agreements in place to continue forward, so it lines up with fiscal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Director Dickey, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This isn't particularly my business, but I'm just trying to understand the process. So the people of Abbotsford send in tax money to the regional district, and then the regional district sends the money through to the City of Abbotsford to run the parks. Is that how it works?
Mr. Urban or Ms. Kinnaman, or maybe that's a finance question. Not sure.
Chair Lum,
go ahead.
I can address that. That is an aspect of it. The City of Abbotsford operates and maintains 2 parks in this sub system. There's also a third park, which is Sumas Mountain Regional Park, and that park is administered by us. So there is some flow through of money that goes to Abbotsford for the maintenance of Glen Valley and Matsqui.
Good, thank you for the explanation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Urban. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
7.1, we have the 2020-2022 strategic plan. As the committee is aware, we've been working on this for the past number of months, and at our recent session, we had some agreed upon language for that plan. And I'm just really grateful to our communication staff who were really able to turn this around into a document for presentation today.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Facio, second by Director Blue. Discussion or questions? Director Blue.
Thank you. Just, it's been stated already, but it's just so great to see this here and all the work that has gone into it. I really want to express appreciation to staff. It's a document that's easy to follow. It's easy to be able to look back and see the progress that we were attempting to make and how far along we have come. So really, really appreciate having that, and just a special thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Director Blue. Any other comments or questions? Just concur with Director Blue, and thank you, Ms. Kinnaman, and thank you to the communications team. I think there was a lot of work in a very short amount of time that went into making this document, taking it from compiling all of our conversations and the couple of sessions that the board has had, and the sessions with staff, and making it into, as Director Blue said, just a very easy to digest kind of document that's easy to follow along. So yeah, my appreciation as well. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
7.2, we have the 2021 LMLGA resolutions. There's a motion for your consideration with 2 proposed resolutions from the Fraser Valley Regional District for this year.
Thank you. And it's moved by Director Stobart, seconded by Director Dickey. And discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Item carries. Next item.
7.3, we have the Lower Mainland Flood Management Strategy. There's a report there for information. The FVRD has been a participant in this process over the last number of years, and staff are happy to answer any questions that the committee may have on this item.
Thank you. And any questions on this information item?
Just curious whether this document has been supported. I have some real concerns with the fact that First Nations and such are not, they're consulted, but the input is not, does not appear to be valued, nor does our municipality feel that way. And secondly, I think we as a group should invite someone like Tribal Chief Tyrone McNeil to speak to us and to address some of the issues that have come up through the community to community forums, as you have read. And maybe there's others that have concerns, but I do not believe we are getting value for money here.
Thank you, Director Pranger. Director Ross?
Yeah, I just want to back up Director Pranger on that as well. I share her concerns, and I think we need to have more of a discussion on this, but I guess there's a frustration too that we just seem to keep studying and coming up with recommendations and very little movement on action. I'm trying to remember back, like how many years, when did we first start studying this? Like how many years have we actually been studying it? I know members of the public, businesses out there, they're expressing frustration that, you know, enough studying already. We have all the information we need. Let's move. So does anybody know how many years it's been that we've been?
Well, yeah, maybe I can jump in. I mean, it's definitely challenges around finding a predictable funding stream for flood management on the Fraser River have gone on longer than I've been alive. So I don't think it's fair to lay all of that at the foot of the Fraser Basin Council. I think the Fraser Basin Council finds itself in kind of an unfortunate position of being the one that's trying to, the group that's trying to bring together a great many group of stakeholders and kind of synthesize all the information that's coming from the concerns and the wants and needs into a document. For better or for worse, I think what's happening now is they're trying to find a way to satisfy all of the different stakeholder positions on how to deal with flooding on the Fraser. And I know Director Pranger, has been at this much longer than I have, and so respectfully to some of the position that Director Pranger takes, I think she would be better off speaking to some of the concerns from her own municipality. I think, having been a part of this for almost 10 years now, that, certainly we still have the same challenge collectively, and that is that other orders of government, namely the federal government and the provincial government, have made changes and have not provided the necessary funding, both capital and contributions operationally, to maintaining and in some cases just building the necessary flood infrastructure that are going to keep our communities safe. And of course, local governments and regional governments are kind of left here holding the bag. We don't have the resources to support a lot of the major infrastructure upgrades and requirements, and we keep kind of spinning our wheels. And I think you're hearing the frustration from both First Nations and from local governments that kind of enough is enough. We need these other entities at the table. And I know the provincial government, and through multiple respective provincial governments, have provided funding to this particular program, which is this regionalized kind of approach to flood management. But what we really need is the capital improvement dollars. And I mean, somewhere in the order of $8 or $9 billion in infrastructure upgrades. So it's significant, and I don't think the ask has changed too much from back when Director Pranger was asking for it and other people around this table were asking for it. We need a predictable multi-year funding program that is based on good science and good data and good consultation with Indigenous folks living along the river who bring another perspective to the table. And we needed that money many, many years ago. So the ask for me is not terribly different than it was 10 years ago, but I think what we need to satisfy, or what the Fraser Basin Council is finding that the senior levels of government are asking, is that we need more of this data to satisfy, kind of making this big ask. So I know there's a lot of frustration, definitely a lot of challenges. I would not want to be in the Fraser Basin's position, but I think it's the best of the options that are out there. It's the only option that I'm aware of right now that's gaining any kind of traction. So I think, with what Director Pranger is saying, if we can speak with some of the organizations that maybe are having challenges with the regional program and use our voice to help modify the approach and to help try and get it back on track, it's really the only option that I know of. I know the C2C has done some work, and I'm not as familiar with it if they've made more gains or more traction with the federal government. But I speak and have spoken and have been a part of this process alongside Tyrone for many years. So I was meeting with him fairly regularly until recently, when I think the path between what C2C was looking for and what the Fraser Basin was delivering started to diverge a little. Sorry for that long-winded answer there, but Director Pranger, did you have any more? And that's my long way of saying no. I don't think it's I don't think it's a detriment to sit down and speak with our counterparts at C2C, and I think the FPRD is making some effort right now, along with the C2C is making some effort to get familiar with each other's tables. So,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the Fraser Basin Council is a facilitator. They're not a decision-making body. They are into writing reports with scientific background. And I've been involved at that level for since the 90s. And we still haven't made a lot of progress. That's the part that I'm not laying all the blame at the feet of one organization, but I think this is becoming a decision needs to be made on some of these. We're facing a freshet again and again and again. And with climate change and the way things have been going, we will flood from within rather than overtopping of the dikes. With the buildup of gravel in the Fraser River, it is, we are at a point where I fear for our community and I fear for my neighbors. And I don't enjoy that feeling and I worry about it a lot.
yeah, and I've heard those concerns definitely articulated by yourself and former mayors in Kent and Agassiz and Chilliwack, and from chiefs in Seabird, and you know, I guess one of my concerns is, or one of my comments would be that the work, as you pointed out, that the Fraser Basin is doing facilitating this process is not meant to stop any particular regional government or local government municipality from approaching the province and making these kind of requests around their local flood mitigation needs. I don't know what success you guys have had in Kent and Agassiz, but I know the city of Chilliwack has had little to no success in making requests to remove gravel out of the river with the provincial government. They've made specific choices, and they have not changed their mind in the knowledge that I have. And so I guess we've been unsuccessful going it alone. We've been unsuccessful to this point doing it with a group. So I'm not sure what the next approach is.
We are also unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Seabird Island has very limited success. They're working on it again, but the senior levels of government have not been supportive.
I also know that C2C was liaising directly or communicating directly with the federal government, and I'm not sure. Perhaps that's a report that could come at a future meeting regarding any efforts the C2C has made or any traction the C2C has got with the federal government that could be reported on. Director Facio, you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on Director Pranger, I fully agree with her that maybe we should have Tyrone with a meeting of the Corporate Services Committee, and I think that should be followed up at a later date with the other levels of government, meeting with our Corporate and Services Committee as well. I think that's the route to go here. Let's get some information from from Tyrone and his group, and then follow up with this committee and our MLA and the ministers concerned in this area to, as Councillor Pranger has already said, and I've said for many years, we talk a lot, but there's no action. And actually, I'm pretty tired of talking about this, but and there's no disrespect to the Fraser Basin. Everybody has their portfolios to deal with in their own way, and I'm not laying the blame on anybody. But I think it's a serious situation for all our communities. God forbid if there's a major flood, we are really in trouble. So I think it's time to get really on board with this and try and get some action. Maybe we didn't get it from the previous government when we met in Vancouver with the ministers and MLAs. Maybe with this NDP government now that we will be able to get more traction. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Facio. Yeah, happy to work with staff, and as I said, I speak or have spoken fairly regularly with Tyrone, and so I think it's probably a good idea to follow up. Director Raymond, do you have a comment or question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember years back, probably before you were born, Director Pranger and I standing out on one of the dikes over by Agassiz, and we did have a gentleman that was going to supply us with a loader and a truck to remove gravel out of the river. And we were going to do it that day. It did not take long to get a response from the federal government saying they would like to sit down and talk with us about this whole thing. And I believe that's where it came into play that Seabird Island could start removing gravel from the river bank. So it does sometimes take a little drastic action. I know they were threatening to throw us in jail, but we were willing to go. Just for information.
Thank you, Director Raymond. I'm not sure if you were just volunteering me to go chain myself to a loader on the river, but as that wasn't officially moved or seconded, I'm going to not treat that as direction. But thank you for pointing that out. Any other comments or questions from directors? Don't see any. So this being an information item, and obviously a very important information item to directors here. Staff, you've taken note of the conversation. So Ms. Kinnaman, perhaps you and I can follow up on some of the discussion.
We will, yes.
Okay, next item.
Next item is 7.4. We have COVID-19 Safe Restart funding. We do have a presentation from Ms. Lounsborough, so I will just turn it over to her to get started.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm just going to do this screen share here of the presentation. Just bear with me one moment. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. This presentation is intended to address recent concerns raised regarding the allocation of COVID-19 Safe Restart funds received in November 2020. The Fraser Valley Regional District received this grant of $1.362 million to be used to address revenue shortfalls, facility reopening and operating costs for protective services, computer and other technology costs, to improve interconnectivity and virtual communications, services for vulnerable persons, as well as other related costs. The provincial government determined their funding based upon the entire regional district population, 2, the electoral area population, and lastly, assigned a flat amount to the regional district. This was the province's calculation in determining the funding that the regional district would receive. This funding formula is not to be mistaken for how the FERD chooses to allocate the funds. Okay, so the intention is not for a prescriptive usage of these funds, but rather to support local governments as they deal with increased operating costs and lower revenue due to COVID-19. The regional district is required to report annually on the usage of the funds and have all funds allocated by the end of 2021. Allocated does not necessarily mean spent. It means allocated to certain items. And funds cannot be used to directly reduce taxation. Okay, so this slide shows the current allocation of COVID-19 Safe Restart funding. As at today's date, nearly $860,000 or 63% of the grant has been allocated. We are still in the global pandemic and we don't know what we don't know. We have intentionally held back funds, currently just over $500,000, and will continue to monitor the needs of our nearly 120 service area budgets. So this slide provides a little bit more details of the currently allocated funds. Of the $859,000 allocated to date, $679,000 has been allocated to regional and or sub-regional budgets, and over $180,000 has been directly allocated to electoral areas. Following the intention of the grant funding, we have allocated the funds accordingly. So the FBRD has experienced revenue shortfalls totaling $213,000, including the Vetter Campground, Almer Carlson Pool, the bowling alley in Boston Bar, the Hope Air Park, animal control in regards to waived fees, and the Hope Recreation Center. Nearly $300,000 has been allocated to technology improvements to support remote work and electronic meetings, for example. Facility reopening and operating costs are continuing to be expensed for items including security, signage, plexiglass, and personal protective equipment. And other related costs include items for temporary staffing to support areas impacted most by the pandemic. So that concludes the first part of this morning's presentation, and we will come back for the second part in a little while after we finish the open part of the meeting.
So we'll table this item, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda then would be reports by directors. Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay, so just for clarity, this is part one of the item. We'll move through the balance of the agenda, and then we'll move into our closed agenda. Okay, so we'll save any questions until then. Reports by directors, that'd be the opportunity. Don't see any. Next item.
Next item is public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We've encouraged the public to submit email submissions or participate via Zoom. Ms. Van Ness, do we have anyone on the line, or did we receive anything today?
No, we did not receive any written questions, and we have nobody joining us on the line today.
Very good.
Okay.
Next item.
So then we can look for a resolution to close the meeting, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Dickey. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries.